SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
Comfort Moodian භාගයයි කලක් පවතින අලුත් පෙනුමයි.
Tonight, defiant. The president insists that he wasn't elected to keep tabs on rice prices as he digs his heels in over the organic push. Underlying motives. Tea-Small Holders fertilizer shortage claim rubbished by the Tea-Small Holdings Development Authority.
Fertilizer for tea industry, especially for smallholders, have been met for the particular season. As the Stomach General Manager pointed out, there's no big issue in the market.
No entry. Rejected Chinese fertilizer shipment allegedly on the way. Colombo Harbour Master to keep the vessel at bay. More relaxation. New guidelines issued for religious institutions.
We are receiving a lot of complaints that a lot of people are participating for these wedding ceremonies. It gives rise to an outbreak of cases.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Saturday, the 23rd of October, 2021.
Kill Smart Family Season 4.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening. Welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammik Ekanai. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today said that he was elected by the people to the country's top office to bring about greater change and not to keep tabs on dal and rice prices. During a visit to an organic farm, the head of state called on the support of the farming community in his organic push and urged them to have faith in him.
After AdaDerana reported about an organic fertilizer processing centre and cultivation field located in Udubaddawa in Bunahapola Kuliyapitiya, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa visited the premises today. During his visit, the president first inspected the organic fertilizer production procedure. Following this, he then visited the organic cultivation fields.
ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශනයේ මේක කියලා තියෙනවා. මාව පත් වෙලා පළවෙනි පාර්ලිමේන්තු සැසිවාරයේදී කියලා තියෙනවා රසායනික පොහොර වර්ග සහ අනිකුත් රසායනික ද්‍රව්‍ය පාවිච්චි නොකර අපි අපේ කෘෂි කර්මාන්තය දියුණු කළ යුතුයි කියන එක මම කියලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් අපි මේක මගේ පරම්පරාවේ අය නම් දැකලා තියෙනවා පාරම්පරික වගාවක් කරන හැටි. මොකද මම එන්නේ හම්බන්තොට දිස්ත්‍රික්කේ මගේ අම්මයි තාත්තයි දෙන්නම වගා කරා කුඹුරු කරා මිරිස් වැවුවා මම දන්නවා පොඩි කාලේ. හැබැයි අද ඒ කුඹුරටම ගියාම ඒ කුඹුරේ ඇති වෙලා තියෙන වෙනස අර ගැඩිවිල්ලෝ නැහැ, කක්කුට්ටෝ නැහැ, මඩකරි නැහැ, ඒ කිසි දෙනෙක් නැහැ. ඊළඟට අපි එදා නෑව ඇල අපි ගියාම ඇලේ නානවා. ඇල අද නාන්න බෑ නෑවොත් ගොඩට එන්නේ මලමිනියා. අපේ පළාතේ විශේෂයෙන්ම හම්බන්තොට දිස්ත්‍රික්කේ ලිං වලින් වතුර බොන්න හරි අමාරුයි. මොකද කිව්ලා පාරම්පරිකව ලිඳක් අපේ වෙල්ලේ ආයේ නැද තිබුණා. ඒකෙන් තමයි මුළු ගම්මානේම වතුර බිව්වේ. අද ඒක බොන්න බෑ. අද බිව්වොත් මැරෙනවා. මොකද අර කුඹුරට ගහන රසායනික ද්‍රව්‍ය මේකට ඇවිල්ලා මේක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම විනාශ වෙනවා. අද අපි ගියාම ඉල්ලන්න මොනවද? ආරෝ මැෂින් එකක් දෙන්න කිව්වා. මොකද වතුර බොන්න බෑ. ළමයි දිහා බැලුවම වකුගඩු කුඩා ළමයින්ට පවා මාව පත් කරේ මේ නිකන් පරිප්පුවල ගාන බලන්නේ හාල් එක ගාන බලන්න නම් මට මාව වැඩක් නැහැ. නමුත් ඊට වඩා වෙනසක් මේ රටේ කරන්නට දුකයි සමහර මේ වැරදි මිනිස්සු කියලා ගොවියන්ව උසිගන්වලා දැන් කියනවා අපිට රසායනික පොර දෙන්න. හැබැයි මෙහිම රසායනික පොර ඉල්ලන එක්කෙනා මේ පැත්තෙන් ඉල්ලන්න ඕන වකුගඩුවක්. ඒ වකුගඩුවක් ඉල්ලන්න ඕන. ඇයි අද කීයේ දෙනෙක් ඉන්නවද බලන්න නෑ අපි මේක ඉදිරි පරම්පරාව වෙනුවෙන් ළමයි වෙනුවෙන් අපේ දූලා පුතාලා ඉස්සරහට ඉන්න අය වෙනුවෙන් අපි මේ කාර්ය කරන්න ඕන මේක වෙනසක් කරන්නට ඕන. දැන් අද හොඳටම ඔප්පු වෙනවා මෙහා විතරක් නෙවෙයි කාබනික පොහොර හදලා කරන තවත් තැන් තියෙනවා. මම මේ හැම එකටම යනවා ඒ ගන්නම දිරි ගන්නවන්නේ මේක දැන් ගමට ගෙනියන්නට ඕන අනිත් ගොවියන්ට ගෙනියන්නට ඕන මේ කරන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක් කියලා කියන්නට ඕන. අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් නම් ශ්‍රී ලංකාව තමයි රසායනික ද්‍රව්‍ය පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැතුව ගොවිතැන් කරන කෘෂිකර්මාන්තය කරන රට කියලා අපිට ලෝකයට කියන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඒකම ඇති අපිට සංචාරකයන් ගෙන්න ගන්න. ඒකම ඇති අපිට මේ පළදාවන්ට හොඳ වෙළඳ පොලක් හදාගන්න. අපිට විදේශ විනිමයක් වැඩි කරගන්න පුළුවන් නම් අපිට පුළුවන් අද රුපියල් 50ට සාතික මිල තියෙන එක අපිට රුපියල් 150 කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපි එතනට තමයි ඉලක්ක කරගන්නට ඕන. ඒක තමයි මගේ අරමුණ. ඉතින් අපි බොරුවට මේක දේශපාලනීයකරණය කරලා ගොවියන්ව අවුස්සලා කරන්න නෙවෙයි තියෙන්නේ. මම ආරක්ෂක ලේකම් හැටියට පත් වෙනකොට අවුරුදු 30ක් යුද්ධේ තිබුණා. ඔක්කොම කිව්වා මේක අත ගහන්න එපා මේක අත ගහලා මිනිස්සු මැරෙයි නොඑක් දේවල්. හැබැයි අපි ඒක කරලා අවුරුදු 2මාරකින් 3කින් සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම ත්‍රස්තවාදය ඉවත් කරා. ඒ වගේම සටනක් තමයි මේක. කනගාටුයි කියන්නේ දේශපාලනය කළා ආපු නායකයෙක් මේකට අත ගහන්නේ නැහැ. ඇයි? ඡන්ද නැති වෙයි කියලා. මම බය නැතුව කියනවා මට ඡන්ද නෙවෙයි ඕන. මට ඕන රටට ජනතාවට ඉදිරි පරම්පරාවට හොඳ දෙයක් කරන්න. අපිට මේක සුළු කාලයකදී අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක්. මේක අවුරුදු 10ක් 15ක් යන එකක් නෙවෙයි. මේවට රැවටෙන්න නරකයි එක එක්කෙනා දෙන බොරු ප්‍රචාරවලට. අපි හරි දේ කරන්නට ඕන. ඉතින් කෘෂිකර්ම දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව ඒ වගේම මේ ඉන්න කෘෂිකර්මාන්තය පිළිබඳ උගත් අය ඒ අය මේවට අකුල් හෙලන්න නෙවෙයි මේවට දිරි දෙන්නට ඕන. ඒක තමයි බැහැයි කියන එක වැඩක් නැහැ. මං ගැන විශ්වාසය තියන්න. මේ හොඳ පරමාර්ථයකින් තමයි මම මේක පටන් අරගෙන තියෙන්නේ. ඒකට මම ගොවියහතුන්ගේ සහයෝගය විශේෂයෙන්ම ඉල්ලා හිටිනවා.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa then moved to purchase some of the organic produce from the market at the premises.
Despite the numerous explanations given by the government, protests continue against the decision to ban chemical fertilizer in the country. Taking to the streets today, the tea smallholders claim that there is a serious fertilizer shortage. But the Tea Small Holdings Development Authority rubbished the claim.
In its strive for a greener country, government's decision to ban chemical fertilizer was not received well by the farming community as well as the main opposition. However, despite heavy criticism from several factions, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is adamant that the ban will not be reversed, noting that it is the right thing to do by the country. Criticizing the ban in Parliament recently, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa stated that the fertilizer ban would definitely prompt a drastic reduction of paddy yields next season. In response, Minister of Agriculture Mahindananda Alutgamage assured that the farmers will be provided with enough fertilizer on time, adding that the necessary stocks will be imported by the 30th of this month. The minister even said that farmers facing any reduction in yields will be given compensation. However, the farming community of the country doesn't seem satisfied with the government's assurances as they continue to protest against the move. They call for the government to devise a phased plan and to reduce the usage of chemical fertilizers step by step without an abrupt complete ban. Several protests were also joined by the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. Meanwhile, in the area of Tavalama today, a protest was held by the small tea holders who claim to have been affected by the government's move. Small tea holders in Hinindumatu took to the streets today, claiming an alleged shortage in fertilizer. However, the Tea Small Holdings Development Authority is perplexed by the claims.
When fertilizer import stopped in April, there were stocks of close to 80,000 metric tons of fertilizer. So out of that, we were able to secure around 50,000 metric tons for tea industry. Those fertilizers go in three categories, one for nurseries, other one for teas, which is for the 1 to 3 years like the plants. Then the majority goes for the harvesting tea fields. Knowing the importance of fertilizers for tea industry, out of that we could distribute almost all available fertilizers in last few months. So with that, fertilizer for tea industry, especially for smallholders and RPGs and all others, have been met for the particular season. In the distribution, there might be some shortfalls here and there, but in general, fertilizer requirements have been supplied. And on the other hand, government again decided to import chemical fertilizers, especially for tea industry. So those will reach the country very soon. So by that time, all requirements will be fulfilled. When you consider the production of last few months up to July, August, the required fertilizers have been supplied to the market or the field. As the Saga General Manager pointed out, there's no big issue in the market. And for the next season, there will be enough fertilizers without any shortage.
The chairman of the Tea Small Holdings Development Authority also had this to say when questioned about how the newly imported nano-liquid nitrogen fertilizer would work for the tea industry.
This nano-nitrogen fertilizers has been quite new to the world, new to India and of course new to Sri Lanka. Probably we need to look into in detail how it works for the industry. But I am sure this is coming as a nitrogen source into tea. This will be a really good option for us to boost the harvest. Probably major part of the fertilizer can be utilized from this nano-nitrogen.
මිලියන 18.8 නිවස ලක්ෂ 5ක් ගෙවා දැන්ම වෙන් කරවා ගන්න Mulberry Residence.
Now then, the China-Sri Lanka fertilizer saga is also heating up as the Colombo harbour master instructs to keep the vessel carrying the consignment or rejected fertilizer consignment, I should say, deemed harmful away from the port. Meanwhile, the Ceylon Fertilizer Company Limited has obtained an enjoining order preventing the People's Bank from making any further payments under a letter of credit to the relevant Chinese company or its local agent.
Sterility tests conducted on samples of organic fertilizer said to be imported from Chinese company Qingdao Sewin Biotech Group revealed high levels of Erwinia and Bacillus bacteria harmful for plants, subsequently rejecting a shipment of over 12,000 metric tons. Issuing a statement on the matter, the Chinese embassy in the country stated that the harmful bacteria named Erwinia was found after only 3 days of tests and analysis, while emphasizing that as per the International Plant Protection Convention, it will take at least 6 days to detect Erwinia. As such, the embassy called the conclusion made by the National Plant Quarantine Service hasty and lacks scientific basis. Following the findings, the Ceylon Fertilizer Company Limited wrote to the Chinese company that the shipment of 12,150 metric tons of fertilizer en route to the island do not comply with Sri Lankan standards and hence would be rejected. However, with news coming in that the shipment is heading towards Sri Lanka on board bulk carrier Hippo Spirit, despite being rejected by the Ministry of Agriculture, Colombo Harbour Master Captain Nirmal De Silva has instructed to prevent the Panama-registered ship from entering the port limits. Meanwhile, the Ceylon Fertilizer Company Limited has obtained an enjoining order against the China-based Qingdao Sewin Biotech, its local agent and the People's Bank. Making submissions, the legal counsel representing the Ceylon Fertilizer Company Limited pointed out that even though the Chinese company was required to ship sterilized organic fertilizer to the country under the tender contract, it had admitted that the consignment may contain microorganisms. The consignment is a partial shipment worth more than ₹1 billion procured through a tender process initiated by the Ministry of Agriculture. The enjoining order issued by the Commercial High Court prevents the People's Bank from making any payment under a letter of credit opened in favour of the Chinese company or its local agent. Commenting on the matter, Secretary to the Ministry of Agriculture insisted that the rejected shipment will not be unloaded onto Sri Lankan soil without the permission of the Director General of Agriculture.
ඔය නැවෙන් අපි ඉල්ලපු නැති වැරදි දෙයක් ගොඩවන්න බෑ. කෘෂිකර්ම අධ්‍යක්ෂ ජනරාල් වරයාගේ අස්සන නොමැතිව ඔය කියන කිසිම දෙයක් ගොඩවන්න බෑ. ඒ ගොඩ බෑවොත් ගොඩ බෑමේ වගකීම අපි බාරගන්නේ නැහැ. ඒතකොට කවුද බාරගන්නේ? බලමු කවුද එහෙම වුණොත් බාරගන්නේ.
Big 3.
Now, how can the upcoming budget attempt to unravel the many issues the country is faced with at present? The view of Professor Sirima Laberatne is that Sri Lanka's long-term issues, such as inefficient tax collection system and wasteful expenditure, should be addressed first, with the budget itself having to be a vision which stretches beyond the next 12-month term. His views came during a budget forum worked off recently in view of the looming budget proposal next month.
Number one issue is budget is just a short-term policy plan, just for 1 year, and it has to be consistent with the long-term plan, long-term policy agenda, showing, okay, this is our direction And this is where we are moving and showing it to consumers, showing it to investors, and showing it to international community and all these multilateral, bilateral associations that we are dealing with. We have to show the direction, and then in that context, then you present the budgets annually which are consistent with your long-term plan. But we don't see that kind of consistency at the moment. This year, during the period of this pandemic issue, the budget, given the narrow fiscal space, the budget problem multiplied because the government lost the revenue and the government has to spend more money to take care of the pandemic issues as well as those sections that have been affected by the COVID pandemic issue. So how did the country manage this? Because particularly through printing money, and the central bank supplied the amount of money that the treasury needed to manage these things. In fact, it is not only Sri Lanka, all over it is the case, because in a crisis situation, in a recession period, you see that the link between money and inflation is broken down. So that link becomes weaker, giving space for many countries to increase money supply, print more money. So that's why you see even in the West, in the USA, in these countries, even China, they have been printing so much money but no inflation in the world. So it is as same as here in this small country, Sri Lanka. So we had the space to print money and to finance the budget deficit during the COVID time. But the problem comes now because the vaccine administration has been around 60-70% being vaccinated in the world now with both doses. In Sri Lanka also, I think it is a very successful case compared to many other developing countries. I believe now more than half of our population has been vaccinated with both doses. So that's a successful case among developing countries. So with this thing, what would you expect? As a side effect of the vaccine program, you would see now the inflation is coming up and the aggregate demand is getting heated in the world as well as in Sri Lanka, limiting the central bank's ability to finance those budget deficits. Now the central bank is compelled to look at its primary objective, which is actually the price stability. So which means now the budget is in a quite difficult situation. How to manage these things? Because we are now looking at this short-term solutions for a long-term problem, and I always say that because our problem has not been the pandemic issue, it has been pre-pandemic, also it has been non-pandemic even during the pandemic period. So there are multiple things, fundamental things that we need to address, so that economic recovery means not the budget, economic recovery means not ending the pandemic, economic recovery means for Sri Lanka, unlike many other countries in our neighborhood, it is even going beyond pre-pandemic situation, because pre-pandemic situation is actually a downturn, and we have seen that downturn for many years, and finally it was hit by the pandemic. So in that setup, I think even the budgetary management has quite a lot to do, not within this short-term 12-month budget, but managing the expenditure, cutting down wasteful expenditure, and also targeting how to improve the revenue side, because revenue side has been a real problem. 80% of our tax revenue comes from commodity taxes, about 20-25% maximum. It has been from direct taxes, which is actually a sign of an underdeveloped country, not a middle income country. If you have low direct tax income, why? Because the government doesn't know people's income and people's wealth, so it is easy to catch them when they spend money. So that has been our practice for quite a long time. I think we need to improve the tax collection efficiency. So these long-term issues have to be addressed to come to a sound budgetary management, at least within the next couple of years.
Taking a look at other local stories, State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, says that the government is aiming to complete vaccination of the 16 to 19 age group within this month, and the booster dose rollout will begin 1st of November.
Sri Lanka's vaccine drive is now in its final stages. The country has so far completely inoculated 13,038,469 of its population. This translates to 59.5% of the overall population. And according to the Epidemiology Unit, 89.2% of the country's population of 20 years and above is completely vaccinated. As Sri Lanka moves to completely vaccinate its entire population, inoculations targeting children aged 16 to 19 years of age children 12 and older with comorbidities, and the 20 to 29-year age group are being conducted simultaneously. Since the vaccination of children aged 18 to 19 went island-wide on Thursday, health officials say that so far 139,000 students have been vaccinated.
අපේ බලාපොරොත්තුව ඔක්තෝබර් මාසය ඇතුළත අවුරුදු 16ක් 19ක් අතර ලක්ෂ 14ක් පමණ සිටිනවා නවයුන් තරුණ තරුණියන් සියලු දෙනාට එන්නත ලබා දීලා ඉවර කරන්න. ඒත් එක්කම අප බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා බූස්ටර් ඩෝස් එකක් ලබා දීම නොවැම්බර් 1 වෙනි සතියේදී ආරම්භ කරන්න. ඒ සඳහා ඉදිරි පෙළ සෞඛ්‍ය සේවකයන් ඒ වගේම ආරක්ෂක අංශවල සමාජිකයන් මේ COVID-19 මර්ධන කටයුතු සඳහා සහාය වන අය. ඊට අමතරව අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා අපට උපදෙස් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා සංචාරක කර්මාන්තයේ නියැලෙන අයට බූස්ටර් ඩෝස් එකක් ලබා දෙන්න. මොකද අප බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා නොවැම්බර් සහ දෙසැම්බර් මාසවලදී යුරෝපයේ සහ ඇමරිකානු රටවල් වල ශීත ඍතුව එළඹීමත් සමග ඉහළ සංචාරකයන් ප්‍රමාණයක් අපේ රටට පැමිණෙයි කියලා. ඒත් එක්කම අවුරුදු 60ට වැඩි උදවියටත් තුන්වෙනි මාත්‍රාව හැටියට ෆයිසර් එන්නත ලබා දෙන්නයි අපේ බලාපොරොත්තු තියෙන්නේ. මේ සඳහා ප්‍රමාණවත් ෆයිසර් එන්නත් අප ඇනවුම් කරලා තියෙනවා. අප තමයි දකුණු ආසියානු කලාපයේ තුන්වෙනි මාත්‍රාවක් බූස්ටර් ඩෝස් එකක් මේ ආකාරයට ෆයිසර් එන්නත ලබා දීම ආරම්භ කරන පළවෙනි රට ඒ පිළිබඳව අප සතුටු වෙනවා.
In the meantime, new guidelines were issued for religious institutions today by the Ministry of Health.
The Ministry of Health today issued a new set of health guidelines for religious institutions. The guidelines stipulate that there should not be overcrowding outside and inside of places of worship, entrance, lobbies, waiting areas, preaching halls and prayer halls. In addition, the number of persons allowed to enter places of worship should be related to the number of persons that can be placed at least 1 meter apart in preaching halls or prayer halls. However, the maximum number of people should not exceed 50 persons. Further, floor markings should be placed at least 1 meter apart at the entrance, lobbies, waiting areas, preaching halls and prayer halls to ensure the physical distancing of persons in all directions. Benches should be marked at least 1 meter apart to ensure the physical distancing of persons. In the meantime, the Director General of Health Services today expressed his displeasure over how weddings are being conducted, disregarding the relevant guidelines.
During past few days, we have observed that we have given permission to conduct or hold these wedding ceremonies with the maximum participation of 50 people in a air conditioning hall and 75 in a open air. But we are receiving a lot of complaints saying that a lot of people are participating for these ceremonies, exceeding this number about 150 to 200, and they are enjoying themselves without even a mask. This is not a good practice. What we have observed is the same type of practices were held soon after the New Year last year, and it gives rise to a huge outbreak of cases. So if we are going to behave in the same way, we cannot prevent another outbreak.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.